Aiko Tanaka was a quiet 17-year-old girl who lived in a small and peaceful town in Japan. She was the kind of student who sat in the second row, finished all her homework, and rarely raised her hand in class. She did not try to stand out. She did not try to impress anyone. Most people saw her as shy, polite, and calm. But there was one thing about her that almost nobody knew. Aiko could play the piano with more heart than anyone in her age group. Her school was planning a big cultural festival. It happened only once a year, and it was one of the most exciting events for the students. Every class showed something special. Some sang, some acted, some danced, and some displayed paintings. The music club was also supposed to perform, and this time they wanted every performer to choose their own piece. When the teacher asked the students what they wanted to play, many chose soft and simple songs that were easy to perform in front of a large audience. But Aiko kept quiet that day. She did not raise her hand. She did not make eye contact with anyone. Her teacher noticed this and asked gently, "Aiko, would you like to play something at the festival?" Aiko nodded slowly. She wanted to perform, but she was scared of how people might react. She had practiced alone for years, late at night, playing only for herself and her mother. She never played in front of a crowd. She never felt brave enough, but for some reason, this year felt different. That night, she sat at her small upright piano at home. It was old, a little worn out and slightly out of tune, but it was still her favorite object in the world. She placed her fingers on the keys, played a few soft notes, and then stopped. Her heart felt heavy with a strange mixture of excitement and fear. Then she remembered a piece she had loved since she was a little girl, Chopin's heroic Polonaise. She had listened to it hundreds of times on her mother's old speakers. It was bold, dramatic, strong, and powerful. It was a piece normally played by world-class pianists in big concert halls. It was not something a 17-year-old schoolgirl usually attempted, but Aiko felt a pull toward it. She whispered softly to herself, maybe I can do it. The next day at school, her teacher asked again if she had made her decision. With a calm but nervous voice, Aiko said, "I want to play Chopin's heroic Polonaise." Duh. The classroom became silent. Some students looked at her in surprise. A few whispered to each other gently, wondering if she was being serious. Even her teacher looked shocked for a moment. It was a very advanced piece, one that required strong technique and deep emotion. "Are you sure, Aiko?" her teacher asked kindly. Aiko nodded. She was quiet, but her eyes showed confidence. She had made her choice, and she was ready to work hard for it. From that moment, everything changed for her. Every afternoon after school, she would go to the music room to practice. She sat at the grand piano with the lid open, letting the sound fill the empty room. She started slowly breaking the piece into small parts. She repeated difficult sections again and again, sometimes 50 times in a row. When she made mistakes, she did not become upset. She simply tried again, focusing on the meaning of every note. Sometimes her classmates passed by the room. They heard her practicing but did not know it was her. The sound was powerful and professional, something they never expected from the quiet girl who barely talked. Aiko stayed late almost every day, sometimes until the sun began to set. The school lights would flicker softly, and the hallways would become quiet as most students went home. But Aiko kept playing, her fingers moving with determination and calm strength. She was no longer thinking about fear. She was thinking about music and how it made her feel alive. One afternoon, her music teacher came in quietly and listened from the back of the room. Aiko did not see her at first. She was lost in the music, playing the opening chords with surprising confidence. The teacher was stunned. She whispered to herself, "This girl, she has something special." Teacher did not interrupt. She wanted Aiko to stay in her world of music. She wanted her to finish the piece naturally. And when Aiko finally stopped breathing softly, the teacher clapped gently. Aiko jumped in surprise. "Oh, sensei? I didn't see you." Her teacher smiled warmly and said, "You can do this. Aiko, I believe your performance will surprise everyone." Those words stayed in Aiko's heart. As the festival day came closer, students heard more and more rumors. Someone said the quiet girl from class to B was practicing a world-famous classical piece. Someone else said they heard strong, powerful music coming from the practice room. A few even began to feel curious. Who was this pianist? Was she really that good? What was she planning to play? And so, without even realizing it, everyone began to talk about her. They started noticing her. They watched her walk through the hallways with her sheet music tucked under her arm. They whispered softly, not in a mean way, but in surprise and curiosity. Iko Tanaka, the girl who once blended into the background, was suddenly the most talked about student in school, and the day everyone noticed her was only the beginning of her incredible journey. Iko Tanaka's love for music did not begin at school. It began many years earlier, inside a small apartment on the third floor of an old building. When she was a little girl, she would wake up to the sound of soft piano notes. Her mother, Mrs. Tanaka, played every morning while preparing for work. The music filled the rooms like sunlight, warm and gentle. Iko always felt safe when she heard those sounds. When she was 5 years old, she started sitting beside her mother on the piano bench. Her feet could not reach the floor yet, and her fingers were tiny, but she touched the keys with wonder in her eyes. Her mother noticed this and smiled. "You like the piano, don't you?" she asked softly. Iko nodded shyly. Her mother showed her a few simple notes, and Iko repeated them perfectly on the first try. This surprised her mother, but she did not make a big deal out of it. She just said, "You have a good ear. That is a special gift." From that moment, music became Iko's favorite part of the day. As she grew older, the piano became her quiet friend. She played after school, before dinner, and sometimes late at night when she couldn't sleep. Her mother supported her, but their life was not easy. Iko's father had passed away when she was very young, and her mother worked long hours at a local store. Money was always tight, and they couldn't afford expensive lessons or a new instrument. Their piano was old. Some keys were slightly chipped, and the sound wasn't perfect. But to Iko, it felt like magic. She believed that every key had its own story. She wanted to learn all of them. When she entered elementary school, her teachers noticed her talent. During music class, she always played with extra care. Even at a young age, she could express deep emotions through each note. But Iko did not brag. She did not ask for attention. She simply loved music for herself. One day, when she was 9, a visiting instructor came to her school. He watched the students play and gave advice. When Iko sat down at the piano, he listened carefully. Her small hands moved with surprising confidence. When she finished, the instructor asked her, "Who teaches you?" Iko answered honestly, "My mother taught me at home." The instructor nodded with respect. "You have natural talent," he told her teacher. She should continue practicing. That comment stayed in Iko's heart for years. It made her believe she could become better, even without formal training. But life continued to bring challenges. When Iko turned 12, the family's financial situation became more difficult. Her mother had to work longer hours. Iko learned to take care of herself, cooking simple meals, cleaning the house, and finishing homework alone. But even on the hardest days, she found comfort in the piano. She could release all her feelings through the keys, her hopes, her worries, her quiet dreams. During those years, Iko began discovering classical music. She used her mother's old phone to find recordings online. That was when she discovered Chopin. His music spoke to her heart more than anything else. She listened to the heroic Polonaise over and over again, trying to understand its strength and fire. She practiced it secretly, even though she knew it was far too advanced for her age. At first, her fingers struggled. The notes were fast, the left-hand chords powerful, the movements difficult. But Iko never gave up. She slowed the piece down, learned it bit by bit, until her hands started to understand the patterns. Her mother watched her sometimes from the kitchen doorway. She knew how hard Iko worked. She wished she could give her daughter better opportunities, maybe a teacher or a new piano. But instead, she could only offer encouragement. Every night she would say, "Iko, do your best. That is enough." Iko never forgot those words. By the time she entered middle school, people started noticing her quiet discipline. She would stay after class to practice in the music room, even when other students went home. Some thought she was strange for spending so much time alone, but Aiko didn't mind. She felt happiest when she was with the piano. When she reached high school, she became even more dedicated. Her grades were good, her behavior polite, and she always helped others. Most students thought she was simply shy. They had no idea how many hours she spent practicing at home, how many nights she stayed awake listening to piano recordings, or how much she dreamed of performing one day. Music had shaped Aiko into who she was, hardworking, gentle, and focused young girl. But despite her talent, she still lacked confidence. Good enough to play in front of large audiences. She didn't think people would care about her music. She thought she was just an ordinary student with a quiet hobby. Everything changed when she turned 17, and the school announced the cultural festival. The moment the festival was announced, Aiko felt something move inside her heart. It wasn't pressure. It wasn't fear. It was hope. Maybe this time she could share her music with others. Maybe someone would listen. She remembered her childhood, the mornings filled with her mother's soft melodies, the lessons she learned on their old piano, the hours of practice in silence. All those moments felt like they were preparing her for something bigger, and without fully understanding why, Aiko began to believe that this performance might be the moment her life would change. Aiko. Tanaka sat at her study desk one quiet evening, her textbooks neatly arranged, her pencil case open, and her notes perfectly written. But she wasn't thinking about schoolwork. Her mind kept drifting back to one thought: the cultural festival performance. She could still hear the words her teacher had spoken earlier that day. Everyone can choose their own piece. Make sure it shows who you are. Most students had already selected their songs. Some chose cheerful pop music. Others planned to play simple tunes that were easy to perform. But Aiko wanted something different. She wanted a piece that spoke for her, something powerful, something meaningful, something that reflected everything she had felt and experienced. She thought about her childhood. She thought about the old piano in her living room. She thought about how music had held her hand during lonely nights and happy mornings. Then a loud and familiar melody echoed in her memory. Strong opening chords of Chopin's heroic polonaise. The piece she had listened to hundreds of times. The piece she had practiced secretly for years. The piece that made her heart beat faster. Every time she heard it, she whispered to herself, "Can I really perform this? Am I ready?" She knew it was not a simple piece. It required great strength, confidence, and courage. Many professional pianists struggled with it. And here she was, a 17-year-old girl with no formal training, thinking about performing it on stage, but the idea wouldn't leave her. It stayed in her mind, growing stronger with every passing minute. Later that evening, she walked to the living room and opened the lid of the old piano. The keys looked worn, but familiar. She ran her fingers across them gently, as if greeting an old friend. Then she sat down and played the first chords of the polonaise. The room instantly filled.
Oh.
With powerful sound. Her fingers trembled at first, but as she continued, she felt more and more connected to the music. It was as if the piece was alive, guiding her, giving her strength. Her mother stood at the doorway, listening quietly. She didn't interrupt. She just watched her daughter with a warm smile. She had never seen Aiko so determined, so focused, so full of energy. When Aiko finished, she turned around and saw her mother. "Was it too loud?" she asked softly. Her mother shook her head. "No, it was beautiful. But that piece, it is very challenging. Do you plan to play it at the festival?" Aiko hesitated, then nodded slowly. Her mother walked over, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, said, "If that is your dream, then try. I believe in you." Those words gave Aiko the courage she needed. The next morning, she arrived at school early. She felt nervous, but determined. When her music teacher asked if she had selected her piece, Aiko spoke clearly, "I want to perform Chopin's heroic polonaise." Her classmates turned to look at her. A few whispered softly. Some looked confused. Others looked surprised. The idea seemed unbelievable. This quiet girl, performing one of the hardest classical pieces ever written. Even the teacher paused before speaking. "Iko, that is a very advanced piece. Are you certain?" "Yes," Iko said. "I will practice every day." There was no doubt in her voice. Her teacher studied her face for a moment, then nodded. "If you feel ready, then I support you. But you must be committed. This will require many hours of work." "I understand," Iko replied. That afternoon, when practice time came, Iko walked into the music room with a calm but serious expression. She placed her music sheet on the stand and sat at the grand piano. The room was empty and quiet. Sunlight entered through the tall windows, making the dust in the air sparkle. She took a deep breath and began practicing slowly at first, then faster. She repeated difficult sections over and over again. She studied the finger movements of famous pianists online during breaks. She analyzed how they handled the fast passages, the dramatic chords, the delicate moments. Every day became a routine. School, homework, practicing again and again. Her classmates sometimes stopped by the doorway, curious. They didn't say anything, but their silence said enough. Something about her playing felt special. The sound was not perfect, but it was emotional. It came from the heart. One day, a group of students gathered quietly outside the room. They listened as she played the middle section of the Palinastron, bold and alive. When she finished, they exchanged looks of surprise. Was that really Iko? The quiet girl from class to be? She plays like someone older. How long has she been practicing? No one knew. Iko, unaware of the whispering behind the door, continued practicing with complete focus. Her teacher also visited often. She was impressed by the progress Iko made every day. She watched her dedication, her patience, her calm attitude, and felt proud. Iko wasn't just learning a PCIA, was growing as a person. Every evening at home, Iko practiced again. Her mother brought her warm tea, placed it next to the piano, and whispered, "Do your best." Iko always replied, "I will." And slowly, the impossible began to feel possible. The decision she had made to perform, Chopin's heroic Polonaise, was no longer frightening. It became her mission, her goal, her dream. It was a decision that changed everything. She didn't know it yet. But this choice would bring her recognition she never expected. It would open doors she never imagined. It would make people look at her in a new way, and it would mark the beginning of a new chapter in her life. One filled with music, courage, and a spotlight she never asked for, but would soon earn. From the moment Iko decided to perform Chopin's heroic Polonaise, her life changed. Every afternoon, evening, and late night became filled with one thing only: practice. It was not easy, and it was not comfortable. But Iko accepted every challenge with quiet strength. After school, she hurried to the music room. She placed her backpack on the chair, tied her hair neatly, and sat at the grand piano. The lid opened wide, allowing the sound to fill the room. She touched the keys gently, feeling their cool surface under her fingers. Then she played the first powerful chords. The empty room echoed with her music. Sometimes her fingers were unsure. Sometimes she made small mistakes. But she refused to give up. When she stumbled on a fast passage, she slowed it down and repeated it over and over until it became smooth. When her left hand struggled to match the right hand's speed, she worked on each hand separately. Then together again, the music room became her second home. Her classmates would often walk past the door. Hearing the strong notes and feeling surprised, they would whisper softly, "Is she still practicing? How many hours does she play? She must really love music." But Iko didn't know they were talking. She focused completely on the piano, blocking out everything else. Her music teacher sometimes entered quietly. She sat in the back seat and listened, admiring how Iko pushed herself without any complaints. The teacher could see something rare in her, a mixture of discipline and emotion, strength and softness, confidence and humility. One evening, as Iko played, the teacher approached her and said, "Your progress is amazing. You are getting stronger every day." Iko gave a small smile. "Thank you. I just want to do my best." Her teacher nodded. "And you are." When the school day ended, Iko would go home, eat a simple meal with her mother. and then walked straight to the old upright piano in their living room. Even though it wasn't perfect, and some keys were a little stiff, Aiko treated it with the same respect as the school piano. She opened her sheet music again and began playing from the start. Her mother often watched her with a soft smile. She brought her tea, adjusted the lamp, and said, "Aiko, don't forget to rest." Aiko nodded, but her focus remained on the music. She could feel her hands improving, her confidence growing, and her connection to the piece becoming deeper. Every night, she discovered something new: how one note should feel stronger, how another note should be gentler, how a section needed more emotion, how another needed more control. Sometimes she lost track of time. There were nights when the clock struck midnight. She was still practicing. She didn't feel tired. Instead, she felt calm, peaceful, and alive. Music had a way of healing her, giving her energy even when her body grew tired. One night, while she was practicing a difficult fast section, her mother walked in quietly. "Aiko, the neighbors might be sleeping," she whispered kindly. Aiko laughed softly. "Sorry, Mom. I didn't realize it was so late." Her mother smiled. "It's okay. I'm proud of you." Aiko felt warm hearing those words. They meant more to her than applause or compliments from others. As the festival drew closer, the pressure increased. Some students began to feel nervous about their own performances, but Aiko felt something else: responsibility. She wanted to honor the music, honor her mother, and honor all the years she had spent practicing. One evening, she recorded herself playing the entire piece for the first time. Then she watched the video carefully. She noticed where she hesitated, where her timing wasn't perfect, and where her emotion felt too strong or too soft. She took notes and made a list of things to improve. Her dedication grew stronger each day. But there were also moments of struggle. There were times when her fingers felt stiff. There were moments when the fast runs frustrated her. Sometimes she felt like she wasn't improving fast enough. She would stop, rest her hands on the keys, and wonder if she had chosen something too difficult. But then she would hear her mother's voice in her mind: "Do your best. That is enough." Those words guided her like a lighthouse. She took a deep breath, straightened her back, and tried again. Slowly, her music became more refined. Her chords became stronger. Her timing became cleaner. Her expression became deeper. People who listened from outside the door could feel the difference. Even the teacher began referring to her as the girl preparing the impossible piece. One night, after finishing a long practice session, Aiko closed the piano lid gently and looked at her hands. They were slightly red and tired, but she smiled. She whispered to herself, "I can do this. I really can." At that moment, something changed inside her. It was no longer about whether she was good enough. It was no longer about impressing anyone. It was about giving everything she had to the music she loved. The long nights, the quiet efforts, the endless practice sessions, every moment brought her closer to something special. The piece that once felt impossible was now becoming part of her very soul, and she didn't know it yet. But these nights of hard work would soon lead to a performance that would leave the entire school speechless. The morning of the cultural festival arrived with bright sunshine and a soft breeze that moved the school flags gently. Students rushed around the hallways, carrying costumes, instruments, posters, and snacks. Everyone was excited. Everyone was laughing and talking loudly. But Aiko Tanaka felt different. Her heart beat softly but quickly, like a small bird fluttering inside her chest. She had practiced for weeks, pushing herself every day. She knew every note of Chopin's heroic Polonaise. She knew each rise and fall in the music, each powerful moment, and each gentle touch. But still, performing in front of hundreds of people was something she had never done before. Her hands felt slightly cold as she walked through the school entrance with her mother beside her. "Are you okay?" her mother asked gently. Aiko nodded, though her voice felt stuck in her throat. "I'm okay. Just nervous." Her mother smiled warmly. "Nervous means you care. It means you are ready." Those words helped Aiko breathe a little easier. Inside the school auditorium, the lights were brighter than she expected. Rows of chairs filled the space, and families were already sitting, chatting, and waiting for the performances to begin. Iko looked around and felt the size of the room pressing on her. She had played alone so many nights, but here, everything felt bigger, louder, heavier. The grand piano stood on stage under the spotlight. It looked beautiful, but to Iko, it also looked intimidating. The same instrument she loved so much now felt like a mountain she had to climb. Her music teacher approached her with a gentle smile. "Iko, you have practiced very well. Just remember to breathe. You don't need to prove anything. Just enjoy the music." Iko nodded, repeating those words silently in her mind. Backstage, Dachi sat on a small stool, holding her sheet music even though she already knew every note. She listened to the other performances. Some were fun, some were emotional, some were energetic. The audience clapped cheerfully after each one, but Iko could not focus on anything except her heartbeat and the sound of her breathing. When the student before her finished performing, her teacher called her name softly. "Iko, it's your turn." Her legs felt light, almost weak, but she stood up. She smoothed her dress, took a long breath, and walked toward the stage. The crowd became quiet as she appeared under the lights. Some students whispered to each other, "That's Hertha girl, who's playing the big classical piece. I heard she practiced every day. Do you think she can really do it?" Those whispers floated around the room, but Iko didn't look at anyone. Instead, she kept her eyes on the piano. She approached the bench, bowed politely to the audience, and sat down. For a moment, she simply stared at the keys. They seemed so white, so black, so familiar and yet so different under the spotlight. Her hands trembled. Slightly, her breath quickened. She closed her eyes. She remembered her mother's soft voice. "Do your best. That is enough." She remembered her teacher's words. "Enjoy the music." She remembered all the nights she practiced until the clock reached midnight slowly. Her hands steadied. She opened her eyes, and she placed her fingers on the keys. The first chord thundered, crossed the hall. People straightened in their seats. The sound was strong, confident, and full of emotion. No one expected such power from a quiet girl who usually blended into the background. Even her classmates, who knew she played well, were surprised. Iko felt a spark of courage as she played the opening section. Each note felt natural, like it had lived inside her for years. Her fingers moved with purpose, and her heart followed the rhythm with calm determination. When she reached the middle of the piece, a part that was fast, complicated, and famous, she forgot about the people watching. She forgot about the bright lights. She forgot about her fear. She entered a world where only she and the music existed. Her hands danced over the keys. She pressed each note with emotion, each chord with strength. Her face stayed calm, but her heart was full of fire. The audience remained silent, listening with complete focus. Her teacher watched from the side of the stage. Eyes shining with pride, her mother sat in the front row, holding her breath. Tears gathering in her eyes, students who barely noticed Iko before now stared in awe. They had never heard a performance like this from someone their age, especially someone so modest and quiet. As Iko approached the final section, the most dramatic part of the piece, she remembered every late-night practice, every moment of doubt, every encouraging word from her mother. All of it guided her fingers to the last powerful chords. She lifted her hands gently for the final note. Letting it fade softly into the hall, a deep silence followed. For 2 long seconds, the room was completely still. Then the applause erupted like a wave. Parents clapped. Students stood up from their seats. Her classmates cheered. Even teachers looked amazed. Iko sat frozen for a moment, shocked by the reaction. Then she stood, bowed deeply, and felt her heart fill with warmth. She had done it. She had truly done it. The stage that once scared her had now become the place where she discovered her own strength. The applause felt like a warm ocean around Iko. She stood on the stage, her hands slightly shaking, her heart beating fast, not from fear this time, but from joy and disbelief. She had imagined this moment many times during her late-night practices, but the real feeling was far stronger. She could hardly breathe as she bowed politely once more. From the front row, Her mother clapped with both hands pressed close to her face, trying not to cry too loudly. Her eyes were full of pride. Nearby, ICO's teacher looked equally emotional, looking back and forth between ICO and the piano with amazement. But ICO didn't stay on the stage long. She moved toward the side quietly, almost shy again, feeling her cheeks warm from all the attention. She wanted to hide, but at the same time, she also wanted to enjoy the moment. This strange mix made her smile softly to herself. The applause continued even after she stepped backstage. "Aiko," her teacher called out as she hurried over. "You were incredible. Truly incredible." Aiko lowered her eyes gently. "Thank you. I tried my best," her teacher laughed kindly. "That wasn't trying, that was mastery. You connected with the music. You made the audience feel something real." Aiko felt her chest warm. She didn't think she had done something so big. She just played the way the music lived inside her heart. Meanwhile, in the auditorium, students who usually didn't talk about classical music were now discussing Iso's performance. "I didn't know she could play like that. She's been hiding her talent all this time. That piece was so powerful. I felt goosebumps. She looked so calm. How did she do that?" For the first time in her school life, Aiko became the center of everyone's attention, not because she wanted it, but because her music demanded it. A few moments later, her mother came backstage. She opened her arms, and Aiko hugged her tightly. "You were amazing," her mother whispered. "Your father would have been so proud." Aiko closed her eyes. She felt tears coming, but she held them back with a deep breath. Her father had passed away when she was very young, but she had always hoped he could somehow hear her music. She liked to imagine him smiling from somewhere far away. "I'm happy you came today," Aiko said softly. Her mother kissed the top of her head. "I wouldn't miss it for anything." Soon more students began gathering near the backstage area. "Aiko, that was unbelievable. How long did it take you to learn that piece? You're like a professional pianist." Aiko felt shy, but grateful. She answered in soft tones, "Thank you. I practiced a lot. Yes, many hours. I just love the music." She didn't brag. She didn't talk about the difficult nights or her tired fingers. She didn't mention how many times she had replayed recordings to study every detail. She simply thanked them with her gentle smile. Her friends, who usually only knew her as the quiet girl, looked at her with new eyes. They were proud of her, impressed by her courage. Later, when all the performances were finished, the principal stepped on stage to give a closing speech. He mentioned the singers, dancers, and actors. Then he paused and smiled. And today, he said, we also witnessed a very special performance. A difficult classical piece played with great emotion and skill. Aiko Tanaka, we thank you for sharing your talent with us. People clapped again, and Aiko felt her face warm instantly. She wasn't used to public praise, and it made her stomach flutter. But she also felt something else, something new. She felt seen after the festival ended. The school hall buzzed with excitement. Parents and students walked around talking about the event. Someone had recorded ICO's entire performance on a phone. Without her knowing, the video began to spread among students' group chats. Many said it was the highlight of the day. That evening, as Aiko walked home with her mother, she held her bag close to her chest. The sun was setting behind the buildings, painting the sky in orange and pink. The air felt calm, but her heart still danced with energy. "Mom," she said slowly, "I didn't think people would like it so much." Her mother smiled. "People love honesty. Your music was honest. You played with your heart." Aiko looked down at her hands. They were small, a little tired, and marked with tiny lines from long days of practice. But to her, they felt different. Now, stronger, more confident. When she reached home, she went straight to the old piano. She touched the keys gently, as if greeting an old friend. She didn't play a full piece. She just pressed a few notes softly. Then she whispered thank you, not to the piano alone, not to the music alone, but to the journey that had brought her here. She didn't know it yet, but this was only the start. Her performance had touched people in ways she could not imagine. It would lead to surprises, new opportunities, and new challenges. She had broken a barrier not just for others, but for herself. And from this day forward, Aiko Tanaka would no longer be the quiet girl who loved music. She would be remembered as the girl whose music made an entire hall fall silent. That night, after the cultural festival ended, Aiko Tanaka sat on her bed with her hands resting quietly on her lap. She should have been exhausted. She had barely slept the last week. Her performance took all her energy. The bright lights, the applause, the attention, it all felt unreal. But instead of feeling tired, Aiko felt something new, a calm happiness. She replayed the performance in her mind. The moment she touched the first key, the silence in the hall, the final note fading into the air, the applause rising like a wave. Every detail felt clear, warm, and unforgettable. Her mother knocked gently on her door. "Are you still awake?" Aiko nodded. "Yes, Mom." Her mother entered with a cup of warm tea. She sat beside her and held Aiko's hand. "I am proud of you," she said softly. "Not because you played perfectly, but because you were brave." Aiko looked down, feeling shy but happy. "Thank you for always supporting me," she whispered. Her mother smiled. "Always." After her mother left, Aiko scrolled through her phone. Her classmates had filled their group chat with messages. "Aiko, your performance was amazing. You looked like a professional pianist. I want to hear you play again. Your piano made me cry. I didn't know you had such talent." Aiko read each message slowly, feeling overwhelmed but grateful. For years she felt invisible. For years she sat quietly, unnoticed. But now, people were talking about her music with respect and admiration. She placed her phone down, covered her face with her hands, and breathed deeply. She had never felt so appreciated. The next day brings a surprise. The next morning was a Sunday, peaceful and calm. Aiko woke up later than usual. She walked to the kitchen, expecting a normal breakfast. But her mother was standing with her phone in hand, looking emotional. "Aiko," she said softly, "look at this." She handed her the phone. A video was open. It was her performance. Someone had recorded the entire piece and uploaded it online. Aiko's heart skipped a beat. The video already had thousands of views and just one night comments filled the screen. This girl plays with so much emotion. Beautiful performance from someone so young. I felt chills listening to this. She deserves a bigger stage. Where can I watch more of her piano? Aiko covered her mouth with her hand. She could not believe it. She wasn't even trying to become popular. She didn't post the video. She didn't ask for attention. She simply played because she loved music. And now, people from outside her school were noticing her. Her mother hugged her tightly. "Your music is reaching people, Aiko." Aiko felt a soft wave of joy wash through her. An unexpected email later that afternoon. Aiko checked her email. Usually, it was filled with school notices or newsletters she never opened. But today, one message stood out. The sender was unfamiliar. She clicked on it. Her eyes widened as she read. It was from a local music academy, a respected place where talented students trained under professional instructors. They had seen the video. They invited her to audition for a scholarship. Aiko's hands shook as she held the phone. She read the email again, afraid she misunderstood something. But every word was clear. "We were deeply moved by your performance. We would like to invite you to audition." She ran to the living room where her mother was cleaning. "Mom, look." Her mother read the email and put her hand over her heart. "Aiko, this is a wonderful chance. I don't know if I can do it," Aiko whispered nervously. "You can," her mother said firmly. "You have already shown what you are capable of." Aiko felt tears gather in her eyes, not from sadness, but from a dream she never thought would come true. A new confidence takes root over the next few days. Aiko became a different girl. She still walked quietly in the hallways. She still smiled shyly at her classmates. She still spoke in her soft, gentle voice. But inside her, something had changed. She believed in herself. She believed in her music. She believed in her future. The quiet girl who once feared the stage now walked with silent strength. Her teacher noticed. Her mother noticed. Even her classmates noticed. Aiko seems more confident, someone whispered in class. She deserves it, another replied. She worked so hard. Aiko didn't want fame. She didn't want attention. She only wanted one thing: to continue growing in music. She sat at her old piano every evening, just as before. But now when she played, she felt a new purpose. Her fingers moved with hope. Her heart beat with excitement. She imagined new possibilities: concerts, lessons, performances, new pieces to learn. For the first time, she allowed herself to dream bigger. The beginning. Not the end. One night after a long practice session, Aiko closed the piano lid softly. She sat back, looked at the ceiling, and smiled. "This is only the beginning," she whispered. And she was right. Her performance had opened a door she'd never expected. Opportunities were waiting. A new journey was starting. Not because she wanted to be famous, not because she wanted attention, but because she had played with honesty, passion, love. The girl who once played quietly in a small room now had a future filled with possibilities, and the world was finally ready to listen.